And then the next one is under, is right before media release, right before that. So he's talking about this paragraph right here. So employees representing this department shall refrain from.
Yeah, is refrain considered to be absolute? Why didn't it just say shall not offer any opinion? To me, refrain has a sense of, well, you know, maybe, as a maybe kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, this is probably old language from our, because it's blue, it's probably old language from our old policy possibly.
Do you guys have any problem with that? We would just say shall not offer any opinion as to blah, blah, blah?
Yeah, that's.
Well, it's either way. Refrain is to.
Yeah, well, I have to look up refrain.
Refrain means to
Stop or don't
yeah,
do it.
to
Refrain could be to kind of hold yourself back, but I'm not sure.
no, I refrain myself from kicking you in the ass.
Right.
It's different than having the refrain not to act in a certain manner.
It says to
Here's
stop.
the definition of refrain. Stop oneself from doing something.
Stop oneself from doing something.
You shall stop yourself from doing that.
Okay, I mean, I'm all right.
It's a shall.
Okay, cool.
To me, it would be
Alright.
simpler just to say not, or whatever.
It's English-wise, shall refrain sounds better.
That's all I have.
Cool.
So that means that 324, with the exception of 324.3E, it's a thingy, right?
Right. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, you know, she sent me the 324 and two of the in the same email. Just saying.
Sometimes the changes, they put all the attachments together.
It's fine.
That's what Google does.
It's easy.
Um,
So we are,
With media relations with that, should change to a shall. And then you guys approved, 329 on the 8th.
Which one?
major notification, we did.
You sure did, I wrote it down. We were cooking,
Say what now?
and we got through it. 329.
We're on 329?
Nope, we were on.
She said we already did it.
You guys approved it last week.
We did?
You sure did.
Which policy was that?
It was the major incident notification.
Hold on.
I'm like reading it, I don't remember to recall, but I'm gonna take your word for it.
I read, yeah, I didn't have anything on that, so.
I'm gonna do the TC gate.
You gonna do the what?
TC gate. That's what Trump did today, TC gate. That's what it's called.
Anticipate?
Yeah, cause it had a little Tiffy gate.
Oh.
Tiffy gate.
Certificate.
Tiffy gate is what he had today. I was talking to you people. Tiffy gate. That's what they call it here.
333.
So 329, yeah, if we're moving on from that, it'll be.
Private person's arrest.
333, private person's arrest.
Is that like,
And it's only 2 pages.
is that the one that, is that the, yeah,
I think we should.
what's the other word?
We should restrain private persons from.
Arresting
Yeah.
people.
330.
What's the other word for it? I am affecting, yeah, what's it?
Oh, affecting an arrest?
Yeah, but it's, when somebody does, a private person arrest, what is it called?
Citizen.
Thank you, that's it, citizen arrest, that's what I'm
You
looking
don't
for.
call it citizen's arrest.
We don't anymore, wow.
What do we call it?
Private person's arrest.
Private person's arrest,
See, I
formerly known as Prince.
Community member arrest.
I need to use that word, you know, when I arrest somebody, somebody's just.
Do you need to review it or have it here?
I have all my
Just-
notes
just
on
for-
it,
Just for.
it's just this,
Okay, I had one on, or two on 333.
Okay.
333.4.
Officer responsibilities.
Yeah, officer responsibility. This, the first sentence was a little officer presented with a private person wishing to make an arrest? What do you mean presented? It's like
Anybody who
comes up
Contact-
to you
comes up
and
to you
says,
and
I
says,
wanna make
mhm.
it private, is that what the idea is there? That's
Mhm.
presented?
Mhm.
It was the word presented there, it was like, who's presenting it?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'm okay with that. Now, back to, same section, A1.
Okay.
Says, any officer who determines that a private person's arrest appears to be unlawful,
Mhm.
right,
Mhm.
should promptly release the arrested individual pursuant to blah, 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 blah. Shouldn't that be a shall? Why do they have discretion over whether they could
Because it says it appears.
release the person or not?
It doesn't say that it's automatically unlawful, it says it appears, right?
Mhm.
It says, if the officer determines that private person's arrest is unlawful essentially, they should release the person. Why would they have
It doesn't say
discretion over
appears.
that? If they've
It
already,
says,
say, I determined, hey, the arrest is unlawful, so then why would I have discretion over that?
An
Would-
officer.
Yeah, you're speaking in terms, you're assuming that the arrest was unlawful. That
That's what
says,
it says.
I thought it said it appears.
Well, it says, yeah, but it says it appears, but it also says, if it appears, they should release the person.
Yeah, they should, but there might be a case where maybe it appears a certain way, but I'm not 100% positive, so I'm gonna take them to jail. I have probable cause. I mean,
Well, then if that's the case, then, this doesn't make any sense, because if it's an iffy situation, you wouldn't promptly release the person, right? If it's iffy, then you hold them until you know for sure, and then you release the person. This doesn't hang together that way.
Yeah, I think if we, any officer who determines that a private person's arrest is unlawful shall promptly release.
how about confirms?
Any officer who
Determines or
determines that a private person's arrest is unlawful, or appears to be, appears to be unlawful is good too,
I don't really like appears.
yeah.
Making a shall after appears, because you're saying it appears, it could be something else. If you say.
I would go with, if there's
If
an
you
iffy
say-
thing,
yeah,
it
if-
should be should, but they should say, well, once you determine it, you should release them, otherwise the release doesn't even
Yeah.
apply here.
Right.
I feel.
Can you do
yeah.
something with that?
Well, I can either A, leave it as is with appears and should, or change it to something more concrete, like an officer who determines that a private person's arrest.
Well, to me, it would be.
Confirms it, and then they shall.
Who
That, I like
confirms-
that, because if you confirm, then
Yeah,
you shall.
confirm.
If it appears, then you shouldn't
I
say
got
shall.
you, I got you, I
So any
totally
officer
agree.
that confirms that a private person's arrest is unlawful shall promptly release the individual from custody pursuant to 849B. That sounds good.
Yeah.
Alright, we'll make that change. Anything else? 333?
What's the number, 333, 333?
It was 333.4A1. We're gonna change some language on there, make it shall.
Yeah, we're gonna change the wording a little bit. Okay. And then on the next page, I have, it says two, it looks like there's a typo or something.
Yeah.
That all doesn't come together right.
Okay.
What does that mean? Is that one sentence above goes to the previous page, or does two actually just start with
Yeah,
absent?
I would think that that sentence goes with the previous, because the officer is gonna need to make a report on how they determined that the arrest was unlawful.
So you're gonna fix that up?
Yeah.
Okay. So, let me ask you this, on the same paragraph, the two, absent reasonable cause to support a private person's arrest or other lawful grounds to support an independent arrest by an officer. So there's no reasonable evidence to make an arrest. Says the officer should advise the parties that no arrest will be made and that the circumstances will be documented in a related report. Is that a requirement? Is that a shall? I mean, they're not gonna arrest, you wanna tell the people.
It depends on a variety of circumstances, because there are times where one side wants to make an arrest, the other side wants to make an arrest, but then once they both find out that they're both making an arrest, they both decide that they don't wanna make arrests. Or one's really drunk and we're gonna take him for being drunk, and then the other guy's like, that's cool with me, I don't wanna press charges on him for hitting me because he's going to jail and he's gonna get sober. So, do I need to advise them all of this situation? Not always.
Well, this presumes that they've determined that there's no lawful grounds for an arrest.
Right.
That's what this paragraph does.
Mm-hmm.
No matter if it's an officer or a,
Poison.
or an officer or an independent person.
Mm-hmm.
There's no lawful grounds.
Right.
So that you can imagine kind of the commotion that went on, either the discussion or what, I don't know if the arrestable party's there or what.
Mm-hmm.
But, then, so a decision's been made, there's no lawful grounds for an arrest. So then this is fine to say, then the officer should tell the parties there's no arrest we made, and I'm gonna document this in my record, or in the record, or something. Maybe it's the body cam record that'll document it, I have no idea, right, cause that could be the record. But, so the question is, this should be should or should be shall? Truthful.
Yeah, I mean, I see what you're saying. There have been times where, I told somebody that no arrest is gonna be made, and they told me to fuck off, and they walked away from me. And then so I'm like, it'll be
Well, you're
documented.
Under the mysterious point, you're supposed to say, well, thank you very much, I'll see you soon.
But
That's
it's
not
the
amazing.
police report number, it's 20, no.
Alright,
So there are times when it's just, you may only have one half, at the scene, and you can't tell the other half that no arrest is gonna be made.
yeah.
I mean, there's just a lot of.
Alright, I'll go with that.
Okay.
So I'm fine on that one.
So to 33 only that question,
Yeah,
right?
that shall situation.
Which one's that one? That's 333.
That was the .4, the release, with the shall promptly release.
That 333.4, 9.1.
Alright?
Which one?
The 333.4.
Yeah.
A1.
A1. Oh, that's an A. It looked like a 9 to me.
A1.
Yeah.
Changing language, and A2, they're just fixing a typo.
Right.
Yeah, yeah. So moving to 337, my favorite subject, biological
Oh,
samples.
there you go, 337. Okay.
Okay.
This sounds horrible.
Okay.
And that's Captain Cameron. I go, oh, I guess Commissioner Perezvelez likes General Order 337. Which, never mind.
Just a question on the top part, where it talks, the second sentence there, it says, this policy does not apply to biological samples collected, blah, 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 blah. Taking a person in conjunction with criminal investigation, nor does it apply to blah, 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 blah. Where's that covered?
Let's see, there's a crime scene, policy that covers that. And then there's also a DNA, there's a policy about DNA and retrieval.
So there is a policy
Yeah.
that covers it somewhere? Okay. And, on 337, 4.1, I'm looking at this, it says the following steps should be taken, so I'm looking at the should. And is there a chance somehow that those steps wouldn't be taken. If not, it should be a shall. I mean, it seems like they're
Yeah.
pretty important steps to collect. This is kind of a touchy business, right?
Yeah.
So, what do you think about that?
Mm.
Is there a reasonable, let's see, that's the end of the section, there's A, B, and C.
Mhm. So I think maybe they're saying should because once you verify that the person is required, once you verify that they've never had it taken, and then you're gonna go use the buccal swab collection kit, then they decide to be non-compliant. And they decide to fight, and they decide to,
I see.
you know what I mean? And then it's like, well, do we force this issue? Do we do a forced blood draw? Do we,
What happens then? They
well,
fight it?
it's in the
In
next
their
section,
policy that
the
covers that? Oh, yeah,
it's in
okay.
the involuntary
I got it.
taking
Okay.
collection.
I'm
So
okay
it's
with
like,
that.
in a perfect world, the procedure would be 1, 2, 3, easy peasy.
Right. But I understand what you're saying, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Says, 337.5,
Mhm.
third line, fourth line.
Mhm.
Force will not be used in the collection of samples except as authorized by court order. I just wondered what that was about. I mean, how does that work?
It's or with the approval of the watch commander.
Yeah.
Yeah, so if somebody is a 2-9, I think this is talking about specifically for,
So you do get court orders issued or
yeah,
something like that?
yeah, we usually just do, especially when
You
it's
do
a
the
force,
watch
when
command.
it's a force.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, this is, okay, so on, same section,
Mhm.
down at the end of all the cross-outs,
Mhm.
says the following employees shall be involved in blah, blah, blah,
Mhm.
administration of involuntary DNA collection procedure.
Mhm.
Is that a slam dunk? There would always be those 3 people and they couldn't take it without them? No discretion?
No discretion.
And,
And that's all that blue content is from our old policy.
all the cross-out,
No, well,
I
it's
don't
red
have
on
the-
yours,
which one are you talking about?
just the new language, so the red language that's not crossed out is language from our old policy.
Oh, it is, okay.
No,
Okay.
I'm just having a problem with the internet, so I can't access my Google documents with my notes, so it's gonna.
Did you try to restart?
Yes, I had to go, it's loading.
Did you say
Loading.
refresh your networks?
Yeah, what I did is just automatically, I clicked on the automatically connect, so it just continues to go up. But it's
Is
just
that Wi-Fi only, or does it have that?
You could put it this one.
Does it have cellular service?
I just made notes and it's like, this is the Berkeley one. I mean, I could do my hotspot, but then it sucks the life out of my phone.
Do you want to use my iPad? Okay.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Where are you, Terry, right now?
He had
I'm,
just.
I'm still looking at this,
Yeah.
couple of these shells and should
He's on,
make
like, the
sure I'm
last
okay
page.
with.
He's
And,
almost done.
Okay, video recording,
Mm-hmm.
337.5.3. Video recording should be made anytime force is used to obtain a biological sample. The recording should document all staff participating in blah, 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 in addition to methods and blah, blah, blah. The recording should be part of the investigation file. Is there any wiggle room on that? I mean, it seems like you have to have a recording on something like that.
The question is whether, that's my question. The question that I had on this one was
What's that?
whether that's necessary because of the body worn cameras, unless you're saying that you're doing it at the jail where there's no body worn cameras.
Well, we'll
And
have
so there's no
we'll have
recording.
cameras in the jail, the jailers won't.
Yeah. So
Right?
if it's
Because
on the, if
cameras
it's in
on
the
jail.
field, then the body worn camera is capturing the, but if it's inside of the,
So let's
public
assume,
safety building,
let's assume it's a, but let's assume it's a detective going out to Martinez and they don't have a body worn camera on them because they're plain clothes and they have to do
They're
it.
out there to take a sample.
That's where the
Or
should
they're going to
allows.
somebody's house and like, hey, would you,
You don't wanna get in a position where you say shall that then, makes it impossible for somebody to complete their task without having a video.
yeah, but this is anytime that they're using force.
yeah, that's it, that is not, it's not, yeah, if the person is an arrestee and it is handcuffed and you're going to some place, a jail, they're handcuffed to a table and you're doing a swab, right? Which probably what you would do is a swab.
You should videotape it.
That's right, I mean, so
But-
that's what this says.
Right.
Well, is there a case where someone would do this without a video recording? I mean, it seems like everyone would wanna protect themselves with a video.
You should,
Yeah, you should.
but
I'm trying to figure out if it's really.
A shawl.
I know where you're going with it, I'm kind of being, I'm joking with you, but I sometimes I'm apprehensive to make something a shall because I don't wanna prevent people.
You're always apprehensive in making a shot.
You're right.
Well, the question is whether it's not a shawl, so this is extremely distinctively identifies a use of force. It doesn't say that in any other instance in which you are taking a sample, this is in situations in which a use of force is utilized in order to compel the person who's arrested to give a DNA sample. That he's saying is that it shall be recorded. I mean, so I know what it should is here. The question is for a transparency aspect, if somebody says to you, there was an extremely use of force, or it was an illegal use of force, and you say, well, there wasn't, and thus becomes a he said, she said. So whether the transparency falls, where does the transparency fall? Where does the fault go? But it cannot be proven because there's no video to say it. But if all the Berkeley police officers, which I believe are going to operate in a manner which is respectful to the law, and they're not going to use excessive use of force to get a DNA sample, then they're going to say, man, here's a video. That's not how we operate, right? So that's the other side. So that's why his question comes in. Am I correct, Terry? Yeah.
In a perfect world, I think it would be great to have them every time video. I'm just saying that there might be a situation, which I just threw out one, I can think of a couple others, where it may not be practical.
But then you should say that. Then you should say shall unless it's unless an exigent circumstance that exists.
Well, but that's what should is. They shall do it
But, yeah,
unless there's a reason.
We've gone through the should and shall
That's right,
definition.
I forgot about that.
So that's all. That's what I'm trying to say is that if you say shall, you're locking people into something, and then if they do it because they, I don't want to prevent people from completing a complete thorough investigation and completing maybe a huge or important piece of an investigation at a certain time where they might not have the opportunity another time and they don't have a video camera, so we're gonna stop something, and we're gonna let somebody go.
No, I get it.
So that's, I'm throwing it
So
out
my
there.
next pitch to you is, on that aspect, my next pitch to you is, on the new general order of use of force, are you going to include DNA sampling? Because if you're gonna have to take a DNA sample by using force, then a new use of force policy, I'm gonna be looking for that now. I'll pass on this, but I'll look whether this DNA sample taking is gonna be also reported as a use of force, and of what category, 1, 2, or 3. And if it's gonna be reported as a use of force, then if the use of force is used in order to get a sample, then it should be a reason the use of force reporting or the use of force report why it was used.
So they're two separate issues though.
Sure, but they're
Two
connected.
separate issues, but, so use of force is use of force no matter what, regardless of what the situation is. So it doesn't need to be mentioned specifically for what the officer is trying to accomplish. The bottom line is a use of force is a use of force, and it shall be reported under these circumstances. It doesn't, we're not.
But I haven't read that yet.
Yeah.
I haven't read it,
Yeah,
so
well,
you know
it's
what I'm
not
saying?
done yet, but.
You see, but that's what I'm saying, right? I mean, cause I have worked in 2 other general orders for 2 other departments in which they are level 1, 2, and 3 of use of force reporting. And what does that constitute? A control hold is considered in San
Well,
Francisco a use of force.
This policy says, should employees use physical force to overcome an individual's violent resistance to DNA collection process, the incident supervisor shall adhere to reporting protocols and the use of force policy. Officer shall document the conduct of everybody, blah, 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 in the report.
Where did you read that?
The next page?
It's, the top of the 2nd page, or the 3rd page.
Use of force, yeah.
Uh-oh. That's your car bomb, Terry. That's not how BMW sounds.
So,
Is it?
If they have to, punch this person because they're being violent and we're trying to subdue him and we end up having to put him in a wrap and, he gets injured in the middle of it all, then somebody's gonna make a use of force report.
okay, so is the use of force report, you say, in the new policy requires video? What are you talking about? How does it
No,
come together? I don't
he's just
understand.
asking.
George is saying he's willing to forego this, provided there's something mentioned in the new use of force report, or policy. And what I'm saying is, you're not going to put a method, to achieve something for each use of force. The bottom line is, the type of use of force that is gonna be used is going to trigger the reporting of the use of force, therefore that will document it. It doesn't matter what we're doing. It doesn't matter if we're getting a sample. It doesn't matter if we're fighting with somebody who just beat up their wife. It doesn't matter. If we use the force, we're going to document it, and these are the reasons why, right? It doesn't matter. If we get into every single reason why an officer would use force,
No, I understand.
it would be a 1 million page document. That's what I'm
Well,
saying.
that's what, but for the record, that's how it's moving now in the Bay Area use of force. Because if you do a control hold on a person, and that control hold is 1 use of force, if that becomes a dynamic takedown, that's the 2nd use of force. Both have to be reported. What's happening has changed now in California is the fact that other agencies or a police officer will report a control hold, not the dynamic takedown, or the physical use, and that's a problem. So the new general orders coming down the pipeline specifically say that in instances of use of force, and where more than 1 use of force is utilized, all have to be reported individually. Because then the allegation of use of force, if there's 1, has to be based on whatever the concern is. If someone says to you, I think you used a proper use of force because you didn't do that take, if you did a control hold, come on now. And it doesn't show. So does a body worn camera shows that it was a control hold into a dynamic takedown, and it justifies the use of force. So that's how it's moving for use of force
Well,
policies.
look, we'll get into that. We're not there, and there are some agencies that are going way far, and there are some agencies that are going the opposite, because I could cite a couple of them.
I know,
So
but
we're gonna be somewhere where we get
But I sit on
to.
this one.
Yeah, yeah.
And I sat on the other 2.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is that if somebody does, what's a use of force that is used for someone to take a sample, right? Is it a hold, is it a control? As long as it's reported to me, I don't have a problem with that. What I'm saying is that when you have a use of force reporting, whether there'll be some commentary about DNA sampling, right? Is that,
Well,
is
that
that
would
the
be,
one?
that's gonna be
Are
the
you,
whole-
You could also
I'm a
say
reporter
if
for the
you're making
Daily
a
Caller.
private
Oh,
citizen
wonderful.
arrest and
Yeah,
they
I
find
know,
you
very well.
using use of
I have to
force.
step out at like 7:30
You know, you
to
use
take
force,
another
you're gonna need
interview.
to report
Oh,
it.
That's
But that
interesting.
doesn't
No,
mean you're
no,
not gonna
okay,
put
yeah,
use of force
so I'm
policy
just gonna miss
anytime
that,
you're
like,
arresting
little
somebody
part.
on a private person's arrest.
And they resist.
Which
You're
part's
not,
that?
you're
think
mixing too many things.
It'll be like
The
right
bottom line is
after,
the use of force
I assume
itself,
it's gonna be like right
regardless
after
of what the
public comment.
circumstance is,
Oh, that's the beginning.
that is
Yeah,
what will
okay,
trigger
no problem.
a use of
So I'll
force
give you my
reporting.
email too.
It's
so
not
whatever.
the action, it's not the overall mission of what you're
That's
trying to
2-9,
achieve.
sorry.
It's the use of force itself. Those two things are completely
Congratulations.
separate.
Thank you. I'd like to
That's right,
eventually learn
that's
about
right, but I
like you
mean,
guys.
the whole argument
So if we
now,
decide and all
use
that,
of
but-
force considerations
Thank
and
you so
conversations in the
much.
United States is whether the escalation is used, how the use of force was
I can print
allocated,
you
what
now
kind of
if you
discretion
want.
was
Yeah.
used.
That's
Understood.
another argument.
But- But as I'm saying, I don't have a problem with this, but I'll be looking for a more of a deeper conversation
Oh,
about
yeah.
what that is.
We're,
when it
we're
comes up.
working on that.
No, I
Did you have anything else, Terry, on?
Well, I'm still on the same line, because all this doesn't have anything to do with this, the way I see it. This is about taking a biological sample and whether it should be required or not.
Oh,
And I
about the
look at
data
it
recording?
I'm still on 5.2.
Yeah.
And basically, I look at it from two angles. One is what is expected of the officer, and two is what might be expected to be if something happens with respect to a complaint, or
Yeah.
somebody filed a suit, or something, I don't know, forget about the suit, but that there would be transparency into
Yeah.
what happened.
Yeah.
So people could see what the truth really was. And to me, that is important from a public standpoint. It's able to corroborate the story of the officer. So, to me, the first line should be shall.
But they're saying that it might not be practical.
Hmm?
It might not be practical. It might not be practical if you're, I mean, so it takes 2 police officers to take a sample, DNA sample by force from someone. And there's only 2 police officers who hold the camera.
Thanks, Sabrina.
Well, no, because anytime somebody is taking that administrative or the involuntary DNA, there's gonna be at least 3 people there. So, I mean, I don't have an issue with making it a shall, I think that we can leave it up to the chief to decide which way he wants to go, so I'll put it to the chief and see what
Alright.
he wants to.
Let's leave it at
To
that.
make it obligatory to
And
report.
the other shoulds in there seem okay to me, because they have a little more flexible possibilities.
Okay.
Now, down to, 6.2,
Uh-huh.
blood samples. This is another should thing. It says the blood samples should only be obtained under this policy when. 1, 2, right? And so is there any wiggle room on that? I mean, could somebody obtain a blood sample that wasn't either A or B? If not, it should be
I don't have the policy,
shall.
but I mean, what's it do?
It's just,
Says blood sample, oh, you could. In my mind, if a blood sample could be obtained in some other way, other than A or B, then should probably work. If it isn't, then it should be shall.
I think that there could be, if it was a consent.
this policy though?
Mhm.
I'm trying to think of, I'm trying to think of some other, a specific example that has occurred before. Quite frankly.
Here are the wheels. I'm coming out of the elevator.
I feel like this one's very specific to 296. Like it's almost just saying, like it's just because when it's saying it does not apply to biological samples collected at crime scene or from a suspect or from registered sex offenders. So it's like, this is just from people who are required to provide a sample for 296. It seems like it's really specific.
So, yeah, so I guess that's what I'm thinking, is like, where is it captured?
It's all yellow.
Elsewhere about criminals.
Yeah, like 187.
Yeah. I feel like it's elsewhere, but I'll have to confirm.
So hold until we have an answer on the,
Yeah,
any other,
so I'm gonna.
any other instances
Yeah,
in which
it's-
example can be taken?
thing?
Yeah, well, for one thing, it seems to be really specific about the only collections that they're talking about here are when it's required, by the DOJ. And I feel like this is something that maybe the jail runs into more often. Usually we're doing all of this in volunteer collection and stuff for like DUIs and murder investigations. But this policy is specifically saying that this policy doesn't apply to criminal investigations. It's only when people are required to provide a sample for 296 PC, which is something to do with sex crimes, I'm sure. So anyways, I need to clarify that and find out where, which other policy is covering, like DUI, well, DUI blood draws are covered in the DUI policy, but just your standard DNA, retrieval.
So if it's other than DOJ,
Yeah.
that's another policy?
It sounds like it, cause it's saying, it's specifically saying that this doesn't apply to those taken from a person in relation to a criminal investigation. So I'm just,
Yeah, 296 kind of covers a whole bunch of stuff. Murder, voluntary manslaughter, attempt to commit murder, voluntary manslaughter.
but how would that not be in conjunction with a criminal investigation?
Right. Any individual is required to register under 294.457.1. Any person doing that in a mental facility.
So adorable.
So yeah, I'm gonna,
Okay, so you're gonna come back.
I'm gonna come back on that one.
Okay,
Can we knock out volunteer program before we go?
volunteer program.
It's a
Are you on
long.
that duty? Yeah.
Your car's so incognito, man.
Yeah, it's definitely not flashy. It definitely is not flashy, you were correct.
You were here.
Wow.
Walk right
Well,
by.
the other one's his. His is flashy too.
Oh, the other beamer. The blue beamer.
Folks, this is Patrick. He lives across the street,
Oh,
and he is the investigator for the Office of the OIPA for the Park Police Department. He works with Russell, who used to be
Oh, yeah.
the chairman of this commission.
Yeah.
And Russell is the IPA.
Yeah.
Was that a former? That was a
Yeah, that's accurate. Yeah.
He's a neighbor,
You
just
led-
right there.
you
He
led with
never
that
comes to
across
our
the
meetings.
street.
He's right there.
Because I'm busy, daddy.
I listen. It's good to be busy being that. So volunteer program. Did you see any shoes or shawls here,
Thank you.
Barry?
Nice to see everybody.
Two.
Bye, Patrick. Thank you,
for
sir.
all your hard work.
Did you
I'm
see
good
any
on
shoes or shawls?
volunteer.
You're good at the volunteer program. Yay!
I mean, I have some things I could bring up.
Oh God. Well, we have time to do the doggies.
Anyone into the service animals?
Yes,
Service animals.
Service animals.
Services, well, cats and
No, it's not
ferrets.
just doggies.
Yeah, it's whatever, ferrets, chickens.
No,
Ponies.
it's just miniature horses.
Yeah,
Pigs.
I got,
That's it.
well,
Pigs.
okay, well, let me
None of
find
that.
out about that.
Big pot-bellied pigs,
Yep,
pot-bellied
Nope.
pigs.
Yeah,
Nope.
so,
Was
tell
this
me about,
converted straight from our, the old TNI?
No, it's, oh wait, no, it's not. It's a lot of Lexipol, it's, a lot of the, stuff that we had in our service animal policy was related to people being booked into our jail and how to deal with their service animals.
Mhm.
But this,
But there was also discussion about what you could, excuse me.
Are you telling me that I cannot bring my pot-bellied pig service animal to the jail? I'm gonna have to call my lawyer.
is there, why are dogs and miniature horses only single?
That's my question.
What if I had a pet mountain lion that
Oh, really, a pet mountain lion?
Probably not allowed in
that I
Berkeley.
trained from a baby
Yeah.
and, you know, it's.
Ooh, I love
It
your
only eats
skirt,
Leading
Jeff.
down the street.
You know, it's true.
Very nice.
Why is it only dogs and miniature horses?
it's just the way it is.
Is this a Lexipol thing?
It is a Lexipol thing and it's a city attorney thing.
Wow.
She confirmed that we're going with dogs and miniature horses and that's
There's
it.
no cats.
Is that because of kid farms and stuff like that, and petting zoos and stuff like that, or?
No.
I'm thinking
No,
Why add a
she
freaking
just-
horse?
more like case law or some sort of
Yeah,
definition
it's just
in the
like
law.
there are, yeah.
I know what I'm getting for Christmas. I'm gonna get me a horse, I'm gonna walk it through the city every day. I'm gonna go over to the public safety building every Tuesday.
That's cool, you better bring a,
The thing
scoop
behind
on
it, that's right. No, we can put the baskets under their two foot.
So a miniature horse could be used for example, this one says, guiding people who are blind or have low vision. And that's what service animals are for, right? That's one thing. So somebody could be like walking down the street with a miniature horse and then the police would say, okay.
Sure.
Well, somebody
I mean,
might
you have
call, we
traffic
could go out and then we would say, you know, we're getting some
Well,
concerns about
there are
this.
certain questions that we can and can't
Right.
ask. It's like,
Yeah.
what sort of service does this pony
That's right.
provide?
We can't, under ADA, we can't ask you what your
And they'll
disability
say,
is.
you know, it helps me to
Right.
find out where I'm going. It helps
Yeah.
me with my sight or whatever.
It stops at stoplights,
Yeah.
whatever it is. We can ask what the animal does, but
Mhm.
we can't ask what your disability is.
Yeah.
That's right.
Okay.
And
All right,
and even then, under California law, you're not, if somebody says they're, under some exigent circumstances in which the dog is behaving appropriately in a public place, you cannot ask for certification or proof. That's California law.
Yeah.
I go for
It's
that
just
with the restaurant all
basically
the time.
saying that, if it's apparent that the animal is a service animal, don't ask any questions. But if it's unclear, like if it's a pony, whether they meet the definition of a service animal, they can ask the person these two questions. Is the animal required because of a disability?
Mhm.
Yes or no? And B, what task or service has the animal been trained to perform?
And that does vary from my old policy. The old policy was much more broad.
So anyway, that's, I don't have any problem with that, I just
No.
wondered. And on
I just know we're getting it wrong.
343, on 343,
Okay, no, so we're fine with 342.
that was 342.
Yep.
343, I don't really have any problem with.
Cool. Gun violence restraining orders. Pretty straightforward.
Mm-hmm.
And,
Do we have time for 344? We do have time for
344.
Off-duty law enforcement
law
action.
enforcement action.
No money.
Just one question on that. Well, wait a minute, maybe I have one, let's see. Yeah, I mean, I have a few questions, you wanna take it on?
We have 2 minutes.
Okay.
Let's just see where they are.
Does it involve should or shall?
Pardon?
I was gonna say.
Yeah.
I said, does it involve should or shall?
Yeah.
Probably not. Maybe one does.
Okay.
I'm on 344.3.
And this is one that there was no, there was no
Right,
order.
there's no associated.
This is a new general order, so this is important.
344.3.
Uh-huh.
It's talking about, second sentence. Oh, well, it's the whole thing, so second paragraph. Officers should refrain from carrying firearms when the consumption of alcohol is likely or when the need to carry a firearm is outweighed by safety considerations.
Should
Okay,
be
and
present.
it goes on to say firearms shall not be carried by any officer who has an amount of alcohol or beverage or taken any drugs or medications or combination thereof that would tend to adversely affect the officer's senses or judgment. How do we define would tend? I mean, that could be, I know this isn't, officers are different, but I mean, who,
Right, well, I think that they're saying like, if, if I have 3 or 2 beers, it would tend to adversely affect me.
yeah, I understand the
But,
concept.
a 300-pound officer,
Right.
it.
So ABC
it's probably
regulations
not
apply?
I wouldn't say.
So
it
you
would
could,
tend
if you were a
to affect.
300-pound officer and you drank 8 beers, you could still carry a gun even though.
But you could say, but you're talking 8 beers, and
Yeah.
that would
But
also
tend
Terry,
to.
So Terry, ABC regulations in California specifically require that when you are considering when someone has had too much to drink, it is also time lapse between the consumption of the alcohol, weight and height of
I
the
understand
person,
that, yeah.
whether any food has been consumed, and whether the person already came into the place that you're in
Right.
already under the influence, and maybe that one drink is creating 6 other drinks just to kick into the next level. So I think they're saying that a police officer who had 3 burgers, weighs 180 pounds, and is 5'7", 1 beer might not be able to be
No, I
a determining
understand
factor.
that totally.
I think that there's just too many variables about, medication and alcohol,
Do you think you could start
Size.
breaking down
size,
the
time.
pictures?
Versus smaller.
Yeah, there's a bunch of things that
Yeah.
can be taken.
Well, you don't, I mean, let's say an officer is involved with some kind of arrest or something, maybe there's a weapon involved, maybe there isn't, but they're of course wearing a weapon. So the question would be, how do you enforce something like this, to even know if an officer had had drinks or
Well, if an
drugs?
officer is
Because
taking, law enforcement action off duty, they're
Yeah.
gonna report it, and most likely they're gonna report it to that agency.
And they're required to report it to us.
Yeah, and they're gonna report it to us, and that agency is gonna make note of who the officer is, and make note of the location, and if that officer can tell if this officer's drunk, or has been drinking, or.
Just as we would if another,
Yeah,
another
just-
officer from another agency
came
was
to our
arrested.
city.
But I think it really becomes a little more complicated when the weapon is discharged.
Well, yeah.
Oh, yeah. And then that would be a more significant investigation.
So if a police officer off duty discharges his or her weapon, does that then fall right into the regulations of the general order under a police involved shooting?
Well, sure, it's
Yeah.
governed by that, yeah, but we wouldn't.
Whether you're on duty or not?
And we would have to make use for it.
Well, you would have to, yeah, you use force.
But we wouldn't be the primary, if it's out of our city, would we
Yeah, it
be
would
the
be another
primary?
agency.
But the question is,
There'd be an internal only.
but the question is whether the police officer in off-duty matter is, because it's a sworn officer of the Berkeley Police Department, and I think the answer is yes, is still responsible to operate under the regulations of the general orders for Berkeley, as a sworn officer of the Berkeley Police Department.
Well, if you
Yeah.
take action,
Yeah.
absolutely.
That's what I'm about.
well, this basically is talking about carrying
Yeah, this
firearms.
is like, but if you're,
It's like if you're off duty,
yeah, if you're
you're
going.
carrying your firearm, then you shouldn't be drinking or doing whatever that what might impair your judgment,
Those-
basically.
Those
Yep.
are things that we always think about. It's like, well, where am I going tonight? I'm
Right,
gonna bring my
right.
gun. Good idea.
Yeah.
Probably a really good idea.
maybe
No, but I
two.
mean, but if you're the detective, and you have your service weapon was issued, and after work you go in for a drink with a captain, whatever it is, or homicide, whatever it is. And this happens a lot in LA, right? I mean, it's a much bigger police department. I mean, are you leaving your weapon inside your car secured? Is that even smart? Or do you have the weapon with yourself and you have to have the discretion to understand that if you are imbibing too much alcohol, then maybe having a weapon with you is not the right thing to do.
Or maybe you go ahead and go forth and have a beer or two, and you cut it off.
Okay, I get that, last question.
Take a look
Yeah,
at
yeah.
344.5, reporting.
Reporting, yes.
An off-duty officer engages in any lawful activity regardless of jurisdiction shall notify the watch commander as soon as practical. Watch commander shall determine whether a report should be filed by the employee. So why wouldn't a report be filed?
Cause the off-duty officer maybe says, hey, I saw two people breaking into a car and I yelled at them and they ran away. And it's like,
Okay,
so
yeah.
we're not gonna give you overtime for that.
Or let's just say the officer performs some sort of medical, assistance off duty. That would trigger that. That's also a law enforcement function, so that would trigger that, but would it necessarily, if I found you tripped on the sidewalk out of town, and I rendered aid, gave you first aid, passed you off to the fire department, then I notify my department, do I have to write a?
But it's an easier one. You're driving down the street, you see another car, sideswipe another car, you get on the phone, you're calling them, you're following the car, it's there. That's a perfect example. You're doing the law enforcement action, you're calling 911, you're following the car, you're still acting as a law enforcement action, you're not necessarily using force. Is that reportable? Yes, it's reportable according to the new order.
But it's like-
And we would say, if I'm the watch commander and I get the phone call, I'd be like, Terry, you should make a report on that, or I'm directing you to make a report. Because you were just a witness of the crime. You saw the license plate, you tracked where the car went. That's gonna be a supplemental report that you're gonna write for that agency that is now gonna.
Okay, I get it. Last one, officer, last sentence. Officer should cooperate fully with the agency having jurisdiction in providing statement or report as requested or as appropriate. Well, why would that be should? Like, hey,
What if I'm on my way to court and I don't have time to get a statement?
well, you do it afterwards.
What if it was ice?
Hmm?
What if it was ice?
Wow.
Cooperate afterwards.
Wow.
Right, yeah.
Wow.
Why wouldn't that?
Well, I should, but my city says that I
I mean,
can't.
is there a reason you wouldn't cooperate?
Should incorporate it says improvided statements or reports as requested or as appropriate. So if they're like, we want you to, come down to the station and videotape, audio tape statement, and you're like,
Because you
I
don't wanna
don't
make it.
wanna do that, just like any, I don't wanna do that, I don't have time,
Yeah.
whatever.
Well, then,
That
I just wanna have the
if I
police
say,
officer Berkeley be obligated to a police officer.
well, if I say I'll do it, and I do it later, right, and they're like, well, all right, it might not be fully cooperating, you're cooperating, fully cooperating.
yeah, it doesn't say you do exactly what they say, it just says you cooperate.
It says fully cooperating.
But I'm not even sure.
Unless you have an exigent reason not to, you should.
Right.
Remember, the definition was should.
All right, I'll go
I don't
with
really
you
think
on
it's
that.
police
Okay.
officer. So that's a yes on that one?
Yes.
So we just skip yes, shall, no.
Yes.
Thank you, Captain. Thank you, Sergeant.
No offense.
Oh, yeah.
No offense.
I'm just.
What about ice? What about ice?
Measles?
Isn't that should be the answer to everything now?